We did it. I think we're live. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being patient with us, guys. We had some technical difficulties, but today I'm here with Stacey Ann Hales, and we are going to talk all about working from home with Notion. So, Stacey Ann, tell me a little bit about your business, maybe how long you've been working from home.
All right, so I've been working from home for about 7 to 8 years now.
So you're a pro at this point.
I live in Montego Bay in Jamaica, and it's currently raining right now because of Ito. But I do web design. I actually got my start in marketing, digital marketing. That's my school background. And it kind of transitioned from there. I started building websites on my own, and then people started paying me to build websites. And I'm like, wait a minute.
I can get paid to do this? Yeah.
And it developed from there. So now I specialize in building websites for small businesses in particular. And I do help out those businesses with a little digital marketing stuff as well. But mostly I focus on web design.
And now I'm curious too, because my background was in web design too. And now that you're really getting comfortable with Notion, are you helping your clients start to adopt Notion? Is that becoming part of your services?
Not yet, because a lot of the clients I work with don't like working in the digital space at all. They'd rather just do without it. And I feel that for people like those, there's a learning curve that they have to get over to get into Notion. I do have a couple clients who were, interested in it and grabbing onto it. And I'm hoping to get more into no-code development and start building apps and that kind of thing in 2021, actually. When it gets here,
very cool.
It gets here.
Amazing.
That's how we're going.
Fingers crossed. Amazing. Well, maybe folks can let us know in the chat what your sort of level or comfort is with Notion too. It's always good to find out where people are at. Are you more beginner, intermediate, advanced? Let us know. And Stacey does have some templates that she's going to share with us today. So I'll definitely add those to the call to action area below. So let us know your level. Let us know how you're feeling. Maybe let me know in the chat how long you've been working from home. I know for some people it's kind of a new thing and a lot of people are adjusting right now. Some of us have been doing it for a decade, so it's just good to see where people are at. Total beginner, okay. Advanced, okay. We always have a bit of a range of Notion users.
One thing about my setup is that most of it is I started out with a hodgepodge of different templates from you and a Notionaire and William and all of those people. Like I got really into that zone but then as I grew, I kind of learned to adjust everything to what I needed.
Yes.
I still think my templates are fairly beginner friendly though. I don't use a lot of calculations, a lot of formulas or anything like that. So hopefully it works for a range of people as well.
Amazing. Well, why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and I'm going to add your link that you shared to the call to action below in case folks want to check out the templates.
All right.
And fingers crossed, our tech.
We've been having some
technical difficulty.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
All right. I'm bringing it up now. So you're seeing it now?
There we go. Perfect. I'll zoom in on that. Focus. There we go. Perfect.
All right. So the key thing to note about my Notion setup, first of all, is that everything lives on the homepage. I'll show you my sidebar here. You'll see 3 different sections because this home is my actual setup. This is the one I set up I duplicated just to show you here. Had to delete some personal client stuff out of it. And then the third one here is the templates. But everything that I work with lives on the home page. So all the secondary pages are based on the home page in the left bar here. So my homepage setup is basically where I go every day. That's where the frequently used stuff lives. First of all, we have this quote section here that I got from a Notionaire. I pretty much copied the template there and put my own quotes into it, and I'll get more into that in a second. Um, I have a left sidebar here that has all the links to my main pages, broken down by section. And then over here, I have my daily routine, which is just a bunch of toggles that have a list of the different activities. Some of them don't have much, but for like my afternoon session, I have this. You'll notice that it starts from 2 a.m. And that's because I am biphasic. I
Oh,
sleep
wow.
I sleep from 10
Wow.
to 2 at night and then from 10 to 2 in the day. So right now is like sleep time, but I haven't slept in 3 days because of the election.
That's so
But
fascinating. Oh,
yeah,
is that something that you do, like that's your natural cycle? Was it something that you've trained yourself to do? I'm so curious about that.
um, it's it's partially training, but partially it's just when I'm most comfortable. When I'm up at 2 a.m., there's no Twitter to distract me.
Mhm.
There are no people around, and I also take care of my dad, and I need to be present for him during certain times of the day when I would normally be working. So when I wake up early and I can do the work, then take care of him, then get a little nap, then wake up and do the rest of things that I need to do for the day. So
Very
it just
cool.
works for my schedule being at home.
Yeah.
And it's comfort for me. I like working at 2. I get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, I love it. No distracting emails coming in and
Nothing.
Slack
Yeah,
messages. Yeah.
exactly.
Very
My
cool.
clients have become accustomed to seeing, 4 a.m. emails from me. They're comfortable with it now. So yeah, so I work from 2 to 6. So I my day is broken down into 4-hour blocks. Work from 2 to 6. 6 to 10 is my morning routine. That's when as I said, take care of that. I get my house chores done, all that good stuff. 10, go back to sleep. 2 p.m. is when I do the business administrative side of things. I make the calls, have meetings, all that good stuff. And then 6, you know, dinner, household again, and then go back to sleep. It
Wow.
doesn't always go like this, of course. This is just a guideline, but it works for me. And this can be adjusted, based on anybody's
Yeah.
daily setup. And the toggles are just serve just to remind me of, what I should be doing in that session, because it's not something that I naturally fall into, this routine. It's planned over time based on what I think is most effective. And
Hmm.
I find that if I don't document my system, I lose track of it and I
Yeah.
fall into old habits. So this is just one way to keep me on track when I start to fall by the wayside.
Amazing.
Next up, we have my schedule for the day. So all the tasks in here are what I have to do today. It's filtered. I'll show you my big schedule, but this is just filtered for any task that appears today that hasn't been checked off yet, or any task that appears before today that hasn't been checked off yet. So I made sure to include in the filter anything on or before today. So that way, if I didn't finish a task yesterday, it doesn't get left behind. It will appear in here
Hmm.
until I check it off. Here is the tomorrow toggle is another schedule, but it's just showing the tasks that I have scheduled for tomorrow. Yeah, and there's a lot of them. But the idea behind this is just to get a glimpse, if I need to schedule a meeting or anything, or if there's any task that I haven't finished today that I want to drag over to tomorrow, I can literally just hold it and drag it down here and
Hmm.
it moves. So that works well for me. Next up, I have my income and expenses. I record most of my personal income and expenses through in Notion. I have Wave set up separately, a Wave account for my business stuff. But for any accounts, any money that comes into my personal bank account or anything, I track it through here and I put it on the homepage so I don't forget to
Mm.
record it. It's filtered for the month you're only seeing these because this was duplicated a few days ago. But I filtered for the month. I removed all the money. But yeah, so I filtered for the month, and so I can see at a glance how much money I have spent for the month, how much money is left, accordingly, etc. And I tag it by category. And I'll go into the detail template in a second. So that's just my basic day setup of what I have every day. And so I'll go into each um, page separately. So the big one is my schedule. I made the decision earlier this year, and I spoke to you about it, Marie, of moving everything into Notion. So I don't use Google Calendar as my main scheduling app anymore for, events and stuff. All events, all activities, everything lives in Notion in this one database. They're broken down, and I'll show you what my list looks like for each of them. So it's broken down by date, and we have a category. For my categories, I break down by work, home, dad, for anything that relating to my father, business, school, personal. All day is relating to like holidays or all the activities that I might have, and content, which is a separate database, but I'll get into how that ties in a few. Down here we have the type of event it is: meeting, holiday, information, birthday, task, quick task, which is 15 minutes or less, an errand, meaning I have to go out on the road, or content. I find that these pretty much cover everything in my life. I don't know if it covers everything in everybody else's life, but they pretty much take care of everything for me. Channel is strictly for my content. When I move content over into this database, I break them down according to these, because these are my main focus for social media channels right now for my own business. Project, I have a project database, so this links to that database. So if I have a project in that database that's related to the task here, it doesn't always happen like that, but if it does, then I'll link it to the respective project. Time here is just a little estimate of how long this is going to take me, and that allows me to plan my days a little more effectively. So I can see just if I have tasks that add up to 12 hours for the day, I know it's not all going to get done, so I can reschedule accordingly. And I do it not by number, but I do it in these. I use a selector because I just like to. I like
pretty colors.
And recur, which is for events that occur on an annual basis or a quarterly basis, etc. I just tick that so I know when instead of ticking it off as done, I need to reschedule it to the future date. So this comes in handy for like birthdays and holidays. I only add them to the calendar once, and then once that day is done, I just reschedule it to the date in the future. So I don't have to schedule them again next year. So that's how I kind of replace that Google Calendar recurring function. And then done. And for me, when you click on done on a post, on a item, it actually disappears from my main calendar here. So you no longer see the task here, but I have a view for past events that shows me everything that's gone. So I can always go back into here. So I don't archive them or delete them. I just keep them here so that this is kind of my archive. So I can just come back here to check on anything. And this way as well, I can actually make notes in each of these. If I have any notes about the event, or if I have a meeting and I'm taking notes in that meeting, I take notes just directly in this post, in this view, so that I can just refer back to it whenever I need to. Yeah, And then I have an all section that just shows you a table view of every single thing. If I ever want to review that, I try not to go in there too often.
If you ever
So,
want to feel accomplished, yeah.
but yeah, the past view makes me kind of feel accomplished when I see, multiple events checked out for the day, that kind of thing. So the I use a few templates in this view, and I'll show you what those are. Pay bills. So every quarter, I schedule in a weekly routine, monthly routine, quarterly routine. Again, that's just to keep me accountable, to make sure that I'm keeping up with my system, or else it's never going to, I'm going to lose track one week and I never get back to it. But these
Yep.
keep me accountable. I think that's very important. So these keep me accountable. And one of the things I do quarterly in my quarterly routine is to schedule in all my mundane, regular, weekly activities for the quarter. So pay bills once a month, grocery shopping once a week or every 2 weeks, depending on my schedule, and weekly routine every Sunday evening. Monthly routine I do on the first of each month, and then the quarterly routine I do in that transition week. There's usually a week that transitions from the last month of the quarter to the first month of the next quarter, and I use that week for my quarterly routine to go through all of those things, because that's a lot. It has to do with house chores as well as my personal matters, and a bunch of anything that I have to do on a quarterly basis just goes into a checklist on this routine page, and I'll show you what it looks like. I don't think I have anything too incriminating. So yeah, so I note progress in journal, plan next quarter's goals, bathe my dog, wash curtains and stuff like that in my house, deep clean the house. That's all that's there for now, but I'm trying to add more as time goes on.
Yeah.
So that's what my routines kind of look like. It's just some basic checklists. And then I have my content planning checklist, which I do once per every 3 weeks, which I schedule in as well, where I go through and I identify all the holidays and special events. I plan out some blog posts, newsletters, everything. And I try to do this, as I said, once every 3 weeks for the following 3 weeks, so that I'm always up to date on content. I have a content database that I store
Nice, yeah.
for ideas in. That's also on the homepage. This is just a link to it. I'll open this up a little more. Yeah, so I actually link my content database here. So all the ideas that I have for content, I just dump it in here. And then when the time comes to plan, I can come in here and pick, what I want to feature. So yeah.
Amazing. And do you do do you take that week to actually write out the content for? Amazing. And that works well for you in terms of giving yourself that space. You don't always follow your schedule?
I don't always follow my schedule. It's still a work in progress for me, because as I said, I found Notion late last year. I really got into it in February, and I'm just developing systems this year, right? All of this is fairly new to me, and I do see that each month that progresses, I get better at it.
Yeah.
So these are somewhat ideal. Some of them I do, some of them I don't do. But what's nice about having it there is that I know what I'm not doing. I'm actively choosing to not do the things I not do, rather than forgetting about them or something like that. So
can I ask if you were using other tools before? Like, were you using something like Asana or Trello, or like?
I use Trello. I used Trello for a few years before I got here, quite a few years actually. I love Trello. And it was very difficult for me to make that transition, because I loved Trello.
Yeah.
But I actually decided, you know what? I don't know who it was. I think it was Francesco that I saw doing the test. No, maybe it wasn't. But I saw somebody did the test from moving everything from I think they were using Evernote at the time, to Notion, and just using Notion as their full project manager for like a week. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do that. And I did it. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. But there were some features that I missed about Trello, just the look and feel of it for the most part. And I moved back to Trello for like a month. And I'm like, nah,
can't do it.
I really like Notion. So I moved back into Notion again.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stuck with it ever since. But yeah, I did use Trello before.
One thing I find really interesting is, like, I know there's lots of people have different opinions about what tools are better for project planning and that sort of thing, but there's something about Notion that I think you learn more about your own workflow as you go, because it is so flexible. So you end up kind of picking up on that stuff of like, oh, I notice I'm overbooking myself, or I notice I'm doing this, and then you can adopt the system for kind of how your brain works. And it feels like you've kind of done that. Like you said, you got to know yourself and your routines and what you needed, and really
definitely just being able to look at a view like this and being able to see what I have coming up, it really puts stuff in perspective for me. One of the things I do, like if you look down here at in a couple of weeks, everything is scheduled on Monday. That's something I do just as a placeholder. So if I know I want to get something done in this week, I throw it in on Monday, because on Sundays I have my weekly routine, and one of the weekly routine tasks is to plan tasks for the week, and it actually links to the schedules database. So I come here, and then with that I can decide, based on whatever events are going on in this week, what are the best days to do these tasks here. So that's just one of the ways I use this when I don't have anything planned specifically, and it's a task that can be done at any time. So if I scroll down here, you'll see all the little things I have planned, all the holidays are in, and important days that I need to be aware of. Any money that I owe people that I need to pay, I also add it in here just so I can talk about that. And this here, for example, I'm trying to take a vacation. As a small business owner,
it's so hard. Yeah,
easy that is. So I block this off here, and I literally type this whole thing in across the row, so it can scream at me every time I come down here. You're not supposed to be doing any work
during
this period. So that's my schedule.
We had a question come in from Stephanie about that. How do you manage meeting invites with clients? For example, if you have a weekly meeting with a client, how do you have it in their calendar? How does that work?
Okay, so I don't do weekly meetings as a rule.
Yep.
I try to limit as many meetings as I possibly can. But when I do have meetings and the client does require a notification, I use Google Calendar. I do still have my Google Calendar, and I use it more of a communication with clients than for managing my own schedule. So if somebody's sending me a meeting invitation, they can send it to my Google Calendar. I can accept it through Google Calendar, but I don't use Google Calendar to manage it. I will add it to my schedule here. And for just as a reminder, if I'm not around my computer when I get something like that, I typically make note of these things in Google Keep on a daily basis on my phone. I don't use Notion on my phone a lot. It's a little cumbersome, as some people have noted. So I do put stuff in Google Keep, but one of my weekly chores is to clear out my Google Keep. So I always make sure that whatever is listed in Google Keep or noted in Google Keep makes its way back to Notion at some point.
Awesome.
So
yeah, great question. I know Danny had a question about this might get covered, but I thought I would ask just in case I forget. Why use Notion for finances and not a spreadsheet for graphs, charts, etc.?
I don't need anything that complex. I really just want to keep track of the numbers. I really just want to get a visual idea of where my money is going and what I'm doing with it. And as I said, for my business, I keep separate records in Wave where I can track all of those things. But this is just personal, just to know what I'm doing and where my money is going.
Awesome.
So the next database, the next big one, is my projects database. Now, it's usually a lot more crowded than you will see here, but I've deleted all my client projects because they didn't sign up for this. So I just set up some sample ones to show you what that looks like. So as I mentioned, my main work is web design, website maintenance. So that's mostly what you'll see here. I have my Notion office hours project here to plan for this session here. But if I open this, you'll see what one of my templates look like. And as I say, it's not that complex. It's just what works for me. So the first thing I have here is a client portal, which is the page that I share with my clients when I'm building their websites. So I'll change this to their name, whatever it is, and fill in their information here. If they click on this tab here, they go to a page with my information if they ever need to get in touch with me. So this is just a simple page that I've set up somewhere else that's also shared publicly. And then I have activities and updates, which are anything from, I'll show you the different categories. Any meetings that we have, phone calls, emails, requests, any notices that I need to give them, anything that I need to communicate with them, I put it here. Some of my clients, a lot of my clients don't really like using Notion. They're very much used to email. And so I'll email them, but I'll always keep some kind of backup here. I'll copy and paste it here just so that I have everything in one place that I can keep track of. Design phases, I keep these here just so that they can know what's going on and when and what the scheduled dates are for each phase of the design process. And then resources. So as you can see, I have a Notion tutorial here. So anybody who's using Notion for the first time can actually click through on this. I'm not sure whose tutorial this is. It might be Notion's, but it just gives them a general idea of how to use the tool so that they can use it for themselves. And WordPress tutorial, I build most of all my sites on WordPress. So I give them this as well. And anything else that I need to add, that if they send me photos or if they send me any content that I need to add to the site, I just document it here so that when I'm ready, I can just reference everything right here. And then finally, invoices and payments. I do generate my invoices in Wave, but I also add them here. Just so this page exists so that when the client needs to get any information of any sort, all of it is in one place right here, rather than digging through emails and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And going back to my page, I would have shared this page, but as you know, if you share a page in a database, it shares the whole database, or they have to have access to the whole database, which is not ideal, which is why I created a separate page for them here. Down here, I have my side of the design process, where I have these are the same items that appear on their page, but when you click the toggle, there's literally checklists for every step of the process that I go through with that client. So I don't have to think about it. When I come here, I know what happens next. And one of the reasons I built this is because, as I mentioned, Marie, I'm trying to get into the idea of having an assistant.
Yes.
Yes. And so I'm trying to document as many of my processes as possible in order to have someone who can jump in and, just follow through on that. So these are all my checklists, and this is in my template. So if you are somebody who does web design and you want a checklist,
Brilliant.
it's also there for you. And then I link to my schedule database. So if I have a meeting coming up with the client or we discuss anything, I can also add it here as well, and it will appear on my schedule.
Beautiful. So, yeah. Dan was asking, do you consolidate the information from the client portal into a different database?
No. The client portal is where all the information is stored for the client. And as I mentioned, I don't actually delete any of these things. I don't archive them into non-existence. I just check them off as done in my project database.
It's like a
There's
status, right? Mm-hmm.
yeah, so here for done. And if I click on that, then it just goes into my, well, I don't have an archive for this, but it goes into Raw where I can see all the checked off stuff, and I can always search for it. I don't usually go into here. If I need to search for an old client, I really just search for it. So I never need to access client information outside of this. When we get into the maintenance phase for stuff like logos and that kind of thing, I set up folders in my Dropbox, since that's much easier to access when I need them. I set up folders in my Dropbox for logos and any other major branding material that they'll need on an ongoing basis. Or I can move them. I don't always do that, but there is a section here in the website maintenance section for me to store those resources as well. But not all my clients transition to website maintenance. Some of them want to handle their websites on their own. So I keep this separate from the website design phase of things. So in website maintenance, this is the client portal for website maintenance packages. Again, I just enter the information here and I detail what exactly their package covers. Different clients have different packages. So I put that information here and how much they pay. And I document any requests they make here. Whenever I check in on their sites, which I try to do once a week, I make a record of it. And if I have any, I don't know why this says column, it should say notes, but I make any note here of any changes I made or anything like that, just in case, something breaks, I can go back to my notes and say, I've updated that. That might have been, the reason that this happened. And that has helped me before.
Yeah.
Payments, whenever there's a payment due, whenever they've made payment, it's recorded here. And access info. This one is a little tricky. As I mentioned, most of my clients are not really the most tech savvy people. And I find that when I document their passwords, that kind of thing, and send it to them in documentation format, in like a PDF or something, they don't want to go look for it. And they'll call me and they'll say, hey, Stacey, what's the password for so and so again? So I keep them stored in here. This page is not shared publicly. It's only shared between me and them. It's not the most secure option, I would say, but it works for now. Anybody has any alternatives?
I've definitely done that with certain clients where I'm like, I know I'm never going to get them to use one password, so we're just going to have to do this for now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I use LastPass, and I use the generator, which generates gibberish passwords, and they complain about them all the time.
They're like, how am I supposed to remember and type all of that? Right?
You're not supposed to remember. So I do keep them in here just for them to be able to access when they need to. On my page, I will keep, again, schedule if I need to schedule any events related to them. And that's pretty much it for here. I sometimes add a note section and just dump things in there if I need to that I can refer to later. But it's rarely ever used, so I don't add it to the template or anything. That's that. These are more personal tasks which I keep in this database as well. Projects is for everything. As you can see, it's broken down. I have two versions. I have it broken down by status, ongoing, which is in the para methodology. This would be my areas section. I don't keep areas separate from projects because I want to be able to see everything on my plate at a glance. So I keep that ongoing column there for all the major things in my life. I don't know. I'm not sure everybody on the webinar knows what para is. But these are basically ongoing things in my life. So in my actual database, I have all the website maintenance clients. I have anything that I'm handling for my father, um, the regular cleaning of my home, etc., goes into this column. Now I'm doing a full deep clean of
Oof.
my home, which I do on an annual basis, and that's a separate project. So I
Wow,
keep
yeah.
that separately here so I can manage that. And I'll show you when I say my setup isn't really that sophisticated, sometimes it's just a brain dump. So here I do have my schedule that was automatically added, and I have an action list of things that need to get done specifically that I need to buy items for or something. And
Wow.
then I
So
just have,
organized.
it's not organized. I feel like this is a brain. I did a checklist of each area in each room. If I do the toggle, you'll see all the different things that are in each area that I need to take care of. And so whenever I do something, I have a section in my daily schedule in the morning dedicated to working on one of these things. So whenever I do something, I just come here and I check them off as
That's
I
pretty
go.
organized. Come on. That's like, that's very impressive.
And
Wow.
what I like about this is that I spend some time doing this, but then I don't have to duplicate it again. I can just
Yeah.
come back and copy this, next year when I do the same thing. And I also made a few notes here based on, stuff I need to get, all of that stuff. So it's not a system. I can't come in here and really know where to go next, but it's just information storage for this project. So yeah,
That's
that,
cool.
that's that. And then I'll show you what this looks like. I kind of abandoned it. I went back into Spanish earlier this year, but then I
Mm.
abandoned it. So I kind of just deleted everything and plan to start over. But for my school projects, I don't go to school. I just like ongoing education. So I'll just dig up a few resources in an area that I want to study and then just add them to here as like school. So I have the goal outcome, whatever I want to accomplish from this, and I schedule in any training sessions, any school sessions that I want to add to my schedule. And then here I just kind of dump all the resources in that I want to use to study that particular subject. So this is for Spanish. I went halfway into Duolingo and then I gave up because my schedule was just getting too hectic. And if you have Duolingo on your phone, you know that bird is very disrespectful. It's very passive aggressive, and if you don't
Yeah.
keep up with your lessons, she gets really aggressive. So I gave up on that for a little while. And then this is for web development, which I've actually had this in my backlog for some time. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I made a list here of all the courses that I want to cover. I know I do web design. I don't do web development. I should make that clear. Web design was something I fell into. I never actually learned the coding side of things. I can do my job very effectively without coding, as you guys might know. You're here in a no code space, but I do want to learn it just to learn it. So it's here for whenever the time permits. I can refer to these resources and get that done. Yeah.
Very
I,
cool.
I kind of took up most of the time on those two databases, but to be honest with you, those are the drivers of my setup. But I'll
Mm.
go through the others pretty quickly. Operations is a new page that I set up, and this is strictly for when I have an assistant coming on board. I just
Yeah.
have some notes on different areas of my business that they can reference whenever they need to. And I set up an SOP section that I want to build out with a list of all the things that I do, all the things that I want an assistant to do, so I can fill them in with steps that they can take when they're ready to do that. I'm hoping to onboard somebody in 2021 and take
Exciting. Yeah.
over all of these things. So this is
Yeah.
just a good place to store stuff about the business. My list of clients and their contact information is here, and I have web design services listing here. I have my brand style guide and logos, etc. in here as well. Templates, etc. Anything that I think somebody might need to reference when I tell them to reference it goes into that page there. Because I want to make sure that I have pages that can be shared. So I try not to mix my personal pages with the professional ones that I think I might need to share with somebody at some point. I run two personal blogs. I run my own blog, staceyandhales.com, and I have a little fun side Tumblr type blog. Well, it's Tumblr blog for my personal use. I don't know if I can say it on the feed.
Yeah marketing was that? I thought I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. On Tumblr, where I just really share, interesting marketing ads and campaigns and that kind of thing. And it's a mixture of the old stuff. You see the little Oreo ad that I have planned here, from when Oreo did the whole Dunkin' Dark thing. And even most recently, a Jamaican local brand did a post on Instagram where they're promoting their live streaming for burial services because of the pandemic in Jamaica, you can only have 15 guests at a funeral or a wedding. And this company actually offers event services, or video services, tech video live streams and stuff. But because of the pandemic and they're not getting any business there, they transitioned to doing this. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Very smart, yeah.
Whenever I see stuff like that, I capture it and I post it on that blog. I'm thinking of turning the blog into like an Instagram page at some point. But for me, it's just really a personal pet project. So in this is just a basic layout of my content, of a different content structure. So this is ideas. Whenever I have something as an idea, I just dump it here. When I've drafted the caption, etc., I move it to here. And then when I have it scheduled for a certain date, I move it into this column here. And then once it's done, once it's scheduled, I click done and it goes into, it's still in the database, but it disappears from this view. So yeah. That's for that blog. And then the other blog, as I mentioned, is really just a calendar. I have a calendar view here that I use to visualize it. No, I don't think the calendar view is on this page. It's on the schedule page. This page is just for dumping. So if I have an idea that I want to post on the blog or on my Instagram in the future, I just come here and just write it down, click on new tab, write it down so that it can be there when I'm ready to plan. And that one doesn't have any templates, it doesn't have anything else, it's just for collecting ideas. Quote of the day, I don't know if I can go into this one either. I've shared this template. It is a Notionaires template. I've tagged them here just to
thank you, Alex.
That's clear. And it's a very complicated. This is my only database with like any significantly complex formulas. But basically, what it does is it pulls in the date of the year, the day of the year, and then in this column I have randomized numbers from 1 through to 366. And so if the day of the year matches the number that is in this column, then it will tick. Then this formula says it should tick the box here. So if I scroll down and I search for a tick box, it should be aligned with number 311. And that is the quote that will show up on my homepage. So each day you'll see a different quote that shows up randomly, seemingly randomly on the homepage. Based on that. And this is simply filtered to show only the one that is ticked on that day. I couldn't find 366 quotes, so So I did half of that, and then I duplicated them. In my templates that I shared a version of this that has the quotes and a version that doesn't have the quotes. So if you're interested in getting my quotes or not going through all of that work of searching for quotes, you can use this one. But there's also a blank one if you want to use that one
Brilliant.
as well. Bookshelf, um, something I'm very proud of, is a gallery view, and I show the books I've read for this year. I usually read a lot more, but 2020, that's my own estimate. It's 2020. So I try to copy the images from Google and put them here just so you can see, just so I can see at a glance. And I think it looks really pretty. I'm really proud of this setup. What I do is if there's a book I want to read, I put it in my to read section, which is not as pretty. I haven't put the pictures in here as yet. I don't put them in until I move them to the reading section or read section. And when I finish a book, I actually have a template for these. This is my version of Goodreads. I will add the author and the dates that I read. So when I start reading, I add in the first date, and when I'm finished, I add in the final date so I can see what period I read it. It has general genre. I will rate the book once I'm finished, and in this section here, I will add an overall review. As you can see, I didn't review this book. I'm not sure why. And I'll add some personal notes and any quotes that jump out at me while I'm reading the book. I'll just copy them and paste them here. So I can always refer back to this as, my library in the future. As I said, I started this back in January, I think. So I'm hoping that it will build out over time. So you'll see a more filled in one here. I really love this book, Born a Crime. I just posted it. But yeah, so that's my thing here for those. And Mari, are we running out of time?
We still have another 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, and I know we want to take questions or anything, but
Yeah.
so journal is just a basic list template. I just add a new entry, and I do enter categories. So I have a item on my weekly checklist and my monthly checklist to enter a journal entry on what went on in the past month, past week, etc. So I add those here, as well as if there's anything major going on in my life, I add a tag for that as well, just so I can look back at those entries if I ever want to keep track of those things. Notebook is just a brain dump of things. This might be a little incriminating. But yeah, this is just anything that doesn't quite fit into another category gets dumped in here for now, but I want to keep track of it. I dump it in here. I do believe they have tags. I really don't use this very often. This was set up a long time ago. I don't use it that often. URL, category, the status, whether it's earned. Yeah, I don't use this at all anymore, but it comes in handy for people who want to take notes, I guess. I do sort it by alphabetically, so I can source anything I need. One thing I also use this for is that if I'm reading an article somewhere and I know I want to refer back to that article at some point in the future, but it's not applicable to any specific thing going on in my life, I'll also add it to this in this section here, articles worth saving, just so I can reference it in the future. Those are the major stuff. Dad, as I mentioned, my dad is, I take care of my dad and he's ill. So I have this page for him that I keep track of his health. When I take his blood pressure in the daytime, I track that here and I make notes of whether he's feeling ill or anything like that. Medication, he's on quite a few meds. So I keep them. Dr. McDreamy is not his doctor. That's just one of the samples. But I just keep a log of those things here so that if he sees quite a few doctors because of his illnesses, so I just keep them so that whenever I go to a doctor, I have all the information from the other doctors so they can all know everything that's going on for him.
Yeah.
And then resources and files, that's just to keep note of anything I need to keep note of for him. And then finally, his contacts. My dad's contacts are dispersed all over the world. And I do need to keep in touch with these people from time to time. So I just keep a log of all of that here. And it also comes in handy if I'm not around and if somebody else has to take care of my dad, I know I can share this page with them and they'll also have the information that they need. Finances is, I think, the next one here and the last one. And as I mentioned, this page is just to keep track of any spending that I'm doing on a monthly basis. And then down, I filter this by month on the home page. And at the end of the month, I'll show you one thing I learned in accounts that I do here. At the end of the month, I put a closing balance and I subtract everything out of the account to zero, or everything that's left in the balances at the bottom here to zero. And then I add them back in the first item in November so that when I filter per month, I can see how much money is in my bank account and how much cash is I have on me at any time by just looking at this page.
Nice.
So yeah, that's one thing I do. Oh wow, that should not be there. That section there, I'll have to. I hope it's not there.
Yeah.
But I do keep track of. I do have some stocks that I hold over time that I keep track of. So each month I record their current amounts so that I can see where they're at. There. So yeah. And then wish list is just I think again I don't use this a lot, but if there's anything that I want to buy at some point in the future or whenever that I'm not really ready to yet, I just list it here and keep track of it so I can keep track of them when I'm ready to make purchases. Usually when like big holidays coming up, you have Black Friday coming up, I can refer to that list and say, all right, what
it was on the list.
What's on sale? Yeah. And then down here, I do make a short checklist of things that I want to accomplish each month. And I just keep it here as a reminder so I can know, what I'm supposed to be focusing on during that month to hopefully get them checked off. Doesn't always work out as planned, but I say if I can check off, one or two of the 3 items, I'm making progress.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that pretty much covers my entire setup.
Beautiful, so functional, so organized. It's really fun to see. There were a couple of questions that popped in. Maybe we can address some of them and then see if anyone else has any other questions. But so Gray was asking, do you communicate with your clients directly on their page or via comments? And how are you notified when a client accesses or changes a page?
So what I do is I turn on the notifications, I turn on the updates button for their client portals. So if they update the page, I'll know. I'll get a notification here. Where is it? Whenever you get a notification, it usually pops up.
Yeah, all updates will be a little red.
And as I mentioned, a lot of my clients aren't the most tech savvy people and they don't really love using Notion. So I use Notion for them. I input all that information in case they ever want to access it. But for the most part, they communicate with me via email.
Yeah, I kind of started that way too. And the more that I use Notion and the more the simpler that I made it and more fun that I made that space, they're like, oh, what is this tool? And they got a little bit more excited, but it takes some time for those that might be a bit.
I'm hoping.
Another great question that popped in from Molly. So more generic question, were there other platforms or software that you tried first before defaulting to using Notion? If so, why did you change to Notion? I know we addressed that you had been using Trello before and it took a little bit before you actually went all in on Notion, but what was the, did you see a video of Notion in use and that was what kind of got you curious about it in the first place, or what was missing from Trello?
I was on YouTube and I saw somebody comparing Trello versus Notion, and I love Trello. So I was just like, wait a minute, what's this about? And that's when I saw it. And I'm just like, I'm very into blank canvases that I can build out in my own way, which is what attracted me to Trello in the first place. Because while it does have some structure, it was really what you made it. And when I saw this was literally a blank white screen that I could customize, like I just dug right in. And this was not my first setup. I don't think anybody who's used Notion for a while is still working with their first time setup. It has changed immensely over the past few months, but this one is the one I'm most comfortable with. I have dabbled in tools like Asana in the past, but it's too structured for me. They're built-in systems that are where, you know, you have to stick to their layouts and their titles and that kind of thing. It doesn't work for me. I like the blank canvas.
And I think with something like Asana is a great task manager, but it kind of forces everything to be a item that you check off. But there's so much flexibility across your different space, just being able to choose those different properties. So it's just, even just having this daily routine there, right? Like that's not a to-do list. It's just kind of an anchoring reminder of what's happening today. So yeah. Amazing. I really love seeing this setup. I think it's just so clean. I think it's even very approachable for a beginner too. Like not too many complex formulas. And the fact that you can have, like, this is still a pretty advanced setup, but it's not using so many relations and so many formulas. It's pretty easy for a beginner to kind of jump in. And so I hope folks explore your templates and kind of use it as a starting point.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to note, now that I'm on the homepage, if you do use my home setup here or something similar, and you use Notion on your phone a lot, I would recommend moving this left sidebar to the right. It's still a similar layout, but when you open it on your phone, you get to the schedule and the today stuff a lot faster when you don't have to scroll through everything that's on the left side here. But I use it mostly on my computer, so that's not really much of a challenge.
Cool. No, I love it. Does anyone else have any questions or anything that they want to see Stacey Ann go into more detail? It's really, I think a lot of people are going to be adopting this system. So again, we got the templates are linked down below. So definitely curious to hear everyone's feedback on this. It's advanced without beating people over the head. And that's what's cool about this setup. Can we see your boyfriend checklist asking for a friend?
I don't know if that's webinar friendly. I knew that was.
And that's so personal too, right? Different criteria for different folks. Oh, that's so funny.
No, well, the truth is it's not really that incriminating. It's just it's an exercise that my therapist gave me to do one time, and I thought it was interesting and I saved it.
I love that. That's so great. Ashley was asking, how long did it take to build this setup? And I'm sure you didn't just sit down and build it all out, right? This has been evolving over time.
Yeah, so I started building in February, and there are a few of those items, as the bookshelf, the notebook, are really the items that survived from my February setup. But the more I've watched other people make use of it, the more I've learned little things from, here and there. Francis talked about using, toggles a lot. That's Notion Bar, the Notion Bar on Twitter. He talks about using toggles, and I thought, hey, that might be interesting. And I added toggles here. And so it just built over time. But the overtime would be since February of this year.
Cool.
That I started building this setup.
What are the biggest changes that you made from the beginning? Like,
Well,
what were
my
the big?
homepage, the whole idea
Mhm.
of having that homepage and everything on the homepage, that's definitely the biggest thing, because now that I have this page, I don't, whenever I log onto Notion, I don't really need to move around as much
Yeah.
when I'm just trying to view everything at a glance. And it's important to know that while I have my list of items that I have for the day here, I don't actually use this as my daily planner. I grab a regular notebook and I write down the list of all the tasks that I have for the day, and I follow through on that notebook, and then I'll come to Notion in the evening and I'll just check off what was done and move forward. So it's not really much of a schedule so much as things I need to get done today.
Interesting. Yeah. It's almost like a log.
Yeah.
Yeah, toggles. How long did you take to start using Notion and to make things happen and working fine and feeling like you were being productive?
I think from day one I was feeling productive. I wish I had screenshots. I share screenshots on,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still there, but I think from the moment I start, because I may be in a different bucket because I was on Trello before and I was quite productive using Trello.
Yeah.
So from transitioning to Notion, I already had a system going. It wasn't as effective, I would say, as this system is, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a system that I had, and I was able to work with that. But I think what makes this system most effective for me is my schedule database. The fact that I have everything in there means that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to, and whenever something happens or when I know something's coming up, I don't have to think about where to put it. I know where to put it. And I don't have to wonder, if I'll have enough time to do this or whatever. I look at my database, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Love that. Amazing. Yeah, Francis is going to be on next week, and we're going to be talking all about aesthetic and beautiful spaces. So I'm excited
And
to
she has some beautiful spaces.
Yes, really excited to see those. But yeah, no, thank you so much for showing us behind the scenes. I think this is such a well put together setup, and I really hope folks take advantage and download those templates and give it a try. Let us know, maybe on Twitter or Instagram, how you're doing if you do take on Stacey Ann's workspace. But yeah, thank you. Thank you
And
so
I
much.
must say before I go, thank you and thanks to all the people. And I've seen a couple on this webinar itself, but without this community, I wouldn't be into Notion as I am, and I wouldn't be able to build to what I have today. It's the very fact
Yeah.
that other people share their setups that help me to determine what works for me. And I know everything from my setup might not work from somebody else, but when we can take different pieces from each other, that's how it grows. So
Totally. It's
very
such a
grateful for
supportive
that.
community. Yeah, people
Yeah.
are so willing to share their setups, and it's amazing. So happy to be part of that. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad that the rain didn't
Yeah.
prevent us
It's
from
still
doing what we
raining.
got to do.
It's still raining. Well, yeah.
Amazing. Where's the best place for people to follow you online to kind of check out your work?
All right. So if you want the business side of things, Instagram.com/Stacey Ann Hales. If you want a little more flexibility, then my Twitter is where all of that happens. I'm a lot
Awesome.
more open and personal over there, Marie.
Uh,
But yeah, so those are the
and
best channels for me. And if you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. My DMs are open, and I'd love to hear if you have any questions, anything like that. I'm more than willing to talk it through with you.
amazing. Thank you so much, Stacey Ann. Have a wonderful rest of your day,
All
and we'll
right.
see you online. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.